Oh, hello there. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. I was just reflecting back on the extraordinary opportunity I recently had to interview one of my great heroes. You know, life really is a crazy, beautiful, and strange ride. Oh, who did I interview? Well, I had the absolutely extraordinary opportunity to sit down and chat with Kory Clarke, the lead singer of one of my all-time favorite bands, Warrior Soul. Wow, fucking incredible. You want to hear what he had to say? Well, of course, I could never keep something like this to myself. I'm a sharer, and this is most definitely worth sharing. You just sit down there in front of the fire, get cozy. I'm gonna put on the interview and bring you some of that bourbon-spiked hot cocoa that I know you love. Enjoy the interview. I know I did.
Well, fire away. Fire away.
It is my great and tremendous honor to introduce one of my very favorite musicians of all time, the incredible Kory Clarke, the singer, songwriter, and mastermind behind the extraordinary band Warrior Soul. Kory, thank you so very much for joining me to chat here on Heavy Metal 101.
Well, that's cool. Thanks for inviting me. Glad you thought of me. Thanks for the kind comments.
Absolutely. I mean it from the bottom of my heart. I really, really do. Look, I cannot get through this without letting you know how very much I've loved your work over the years. It's amazing stuff. And in all candor, Warrior Soul really did help me and a close-knit group of my friends and fellow huge Warrior Soul fans to get through high school. So thank you very much.
That's great, man. I'm glad I could be of assistance.
Yeah, real serious assistance. All right, let's get down to the brass tacks. I got a number of questions I would just love to ask you about your life and times, so if it's okay with you, we'll just jump right in.
Okay.
Part 1. Detroit got stupid, it was time to blow. The prehistory of Warrior Soul.
Alrighty. So I understand that you spent the earliest part of your career in Detroit. So what musical projects were you up to at that time, and what was it that prompted your eventual decision to relocate to New York City?
All right. Well, growing up in Detroit in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, it's kind of hard to avoid being a musician. And if you're not big enough to play football or, fast enough to play hockey or smart enough to become a lawyer, which possibly I am, I don't know. But you end up playing music. And we had 4 P1 rock stations in Detroit when I was growing up. And we also had Motown, all the funk, experimental stuff. And we had the beginnings of techno and all that stuff happening in Detroit. At the same time, we were watching the incredible decay. And I got to live through see the peak of what Detroit and the Midwest industrial base was, and then watch the incredible decline, rapid decline, and the violence. You could get your ass kicked in Detroit, believe me. So, one of the ways to become successful was to be in a successful rock band. And you could play. I mean, if you played covers in the 70s in Detroit, you could make a lot of money, and people did. But when I got going, I played in every band. I was a drummer. I started when I was 9. I played in all the bands in high school and all that crap. And I was going to be a jazz drummer. But then I was always a big rock guy, too. I had cover bands that I was in control of, and we made a lot of money. But then punk rock happened. And I went full into the punk era, and that's where my original music started. And I started playing in a band called The Attitudes, if you can believe that. And I would do flyers, put them all over the high school, and have everybody skip like second hour or skip fourth hour. And we'd invade like the gym. I had the keys to the stage so I could get in the stage, the auditorium, and set up really quick. And we could play like maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes before they'd shut us down. It was great. It was, we did stupid ass shit. And it was really great. And I started playing out at the clubs then. So then I was playing out and got discovered by a band called L7 in Detroit, which was a post-punk band that really went into the hardcore genre. And we had our own clubhouse downtown in Detroit. And we did some serious gigs down there. It was like a real scene. It was a hardcore punk scene in Detroit.
And you were drumming for them, right?
I was drumming, yeah. In the Attitudes, I was drumming and singing. So I did that for a while, and then I got into some trouble with some of the guys in the Necros. The other guys in the other bands were cool with me, but those guys, they were kind of the kings of the scene because they had their own magazines and stuff. So they were just talking shit about me all the time. So I just said, finally, I said, fuck you to all of them. And I started a band called The Trial. It was like artistic. It was like a soundtrack movie band. Yeah, it was pretty neat. Anyway, I went out to LA, Hollywood, after I got money from Charlie to go out. And I worked with Kim Fowley. He was going to co-produce a record with me. I don't know if you know who Kim is.
I do.
Yeah, okay. Well, that was an experience.
I'm sure.
So I was right out there, right when all that shit was starting to hit in Hollywood, all the spandex and all that crap. And I was like, oh, man, this is not going to be easy to compete with. I was like, I'm not doing that. Anyway, I went back to Detroit, and I got a call from a friend that said the FBI was onto Charlie. So I said, well, okay. Hung up the phone. And I moved to New York City and just moved in with my friend down the Lower East Side. So that's how I got to New York.
Excellent. So when you got to NYC, I know that you were pretty active in spoken word performance art, which has played definitely an important role in Warrior Soul over the years. So how did that happen? How did you get an interest in spoken word, and what sort of things were you doing in those early days?
When I got to New York, I was like, I just felt like rock and roll bands were antiquated. I thought the whole format was dead. And I wasn't exactly wrong in many ways. I was just doing spoken word poetry with a backing track. But if I would have made it more of a funky beat and just sang over it, it would have been like hip hop. But we all had the same sort of inkling of what was going to happen. It was time for a new kind of format, I believe. And it bore itself out eventually. But I became a VJ at one of the important clubs called Danceteria. And Rick Rubin and all those guys were coming in, playing Beastie Boys and all the Def Jam stuff. And they would pay me in, they tipped me, let's say, to play their stuff.
Yes. Ye olden payola.
Yeah, the third floor of Danceteria was very well known as the Tuditorium. Anyway, I had my own booth and I could do whatever I wanted. I ran video for 4 floors, plus the roof. And I was doing performance art in the city. Probably did 6 shows called Kory Clarke, Warrior Soul. And eventually I did a show, and it was really intense, outrageous, scary shit. And finally I asked somebody at the Pyramid Club, the girl that was promoting it, what'd you think of that? She goes, dude, you got to get out. You got to stop doing this. You need to just get a rock band and get on with it. And I was like, because I'd heard this a few times over the last few months before. So I said, okay. I said, I'm going to have the best band in this town in 6 months. You watch. And she goes, yeah, right. Okay. So, well, I'm going to make a long story short. I acquired enough money to do demos. And because I was working at Danceteria, I was meeting a lot of cool people, and they were inviting me to parties. And I ended up getting an attorney out of one of these parties called Michael Guido. And I got signed to Mechanic. I took that deal, and I went and found Michael Guido. And I said, listen, I like this deal, but I think we could do better. And he goes, oh, yeah. Well, which was stupid of me, really. If I would have stayed with Mechanic, they would have got me on MTV really quick. But then again, I might not have ended up with the band I had. I don't know. Whatever. So anyway, bidding war started, and I got offered a lot of money to sign to Geffen, and I did.
Part 2. Last Decade Dead Century. Warrior Soul in the 1990s.
Now, my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that when Geffen signed you, they made you change the band lineup around you from what you'd been demoing with and whatnot. So how did you go about assembling the group that actually recorded Last Decade Dead Century?
Okay, so the guys that we're working with, I picked, and I was paying for all the rehearsals. I was paying for everything, all the promo photos, all the recording, everything. And they came along. I wanted to pay them out when the deal came through. So the deal with Geffen came through, and they took me into their office and said, "Look, we don't like your band. We just want to sign you." And I said, "Okay." I go, "I get it. I didn't know anything to anybody except Pete McClanahan, who I thought was really good."
He was indeed.
Yeah, and very instrumental in what Warrior Soul was. The other guys, they were replaceable for sure. And there's a million stories that go on with that. But in hindsight, they didn't want me to have a black guitar player because they had a band called Guns N' Roses already. And I had a black guitar player, and they didn't like that. So they really gave me shit, but I wouldn't back off. So in the end, they really screwed me. And my best friend out of Detroit, Gerald Collins, who I said, "You can have the job." I didn't realize the trip was they didn't want a black guitar player in a band. And they were telling me, "Oh, they're not going to put you on MTV, you know that." So I've resented them over that. And it destroyed my friendship with my friend, obviously. So anyway, yeah, that's how I went in to this. And I got Rico eventually. It passed their test because I wasn't going to get to record until I had the right guitar player. I met David Geffen and John Kalogner and all those guys with the president of Geffen at lunch at the Palms in Hollywood. And John Kalogner is going, "Kory, you got to have a really good looking band." I go, "John, all due respect, I don't need a facade for me. I'm Warrior Soul. I'm Kory Clarke. I'm the money." And David Geffen goes, "Well, Kory, John's a very respected A&R person here at Geffen." And I go, "Yeah, but," and right when I said that, President of Geffen, Ed Rosenblatt, goes, "Kory, I think it's time we go. I'll go get something to drink somewhere." So anyway, you got the short version.
Fair enough. All right, so speaking of Last Decade Dead Century, do you have any idea if that's ever going to be available on all the streaming platforms? Like, it's kind of mind-blowing that that album is not currently available.
My guys say that it is. I can't believe Last Decade. It's the first album?
Yeah, I mean, it's not available on Spotify. I don't know for sure if it's not available across the board.
Well, my guy has told me that it's there. I will double check that, and I will try and find out. I mean, it's stupid that that's not on there. Somebody's taking the money, or somebody's blocking me, or something. I'll get it up there.
Excellent. So after Last Decade Dead Century, obviously came Drugs, God, and the New Republic, which was just a hugely influential album on me, I have to admit. That was the one that made you guys my favorite band. You overtook Kiss. I want you to know that you you beat out Kiss.
Oh, sorry, Gene. Sorry, baby.
I'm sure he's never forgiven you that.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you had a bit of lineup turnover on that album, switch from Paul Ferguson to the late, great Mark Evans.
Yeah.
So how did that drumming switch go?
Not very well. No, I didn't speak to Paul for 3 decades.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I was like, "Fuck you, man." He left the band the day before we're shooting the video.
Oh.
And I paid a lot of money to get him in the country. So, we kind of had a truce after Paul Raven died. But whatever. He's a cool drummer. I wanted him for my band, but it didn't work out. And I got somebody better. Because Mark Evans was great.
Yeah, I mean, Evans was fabulous. Fabulous drummer.
He was an amazing drummer. Mm-hmm. Amazing. Crazy guy. Crazy Keith Moon guy. But great drummer. million stories about that guy.
I'm sure. So with Drugs, God, and the New Republic, the band was clearly making some commercial noise at that time. Hero was on MTV all the time, which was very exciting. And you were touring with Queensryche, I believe, in support of that album. So what was that period like? It seemed like the band was about to become totally huge.
We were feeling good, but I was not getting cooperation from the music reps at FM radio. They had a lot of product they were pushing, and they were kind of looking more towards the Nirvana age types. They were looking at Seattle more than New York. And then I was totally thrown out of it. And maybe it was just the wrong time. I mean, I wrote Hero as a commercial song. That's Pete McClanahan riff. But I wrote that as a very commercial track. I thought kind of worked well with Losers. But it was too commercial, maybe. It's like Rocket 88 might have been better, or, whatever. There's a lot of songs on that record. That's pretty solid. Lars' favorite, too.
I know, I saw that. I sent that out to all my friends when that interview came out. It was very exciting.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, we're all the same taste, maybe.
Yeah. So on the earlier podcast episode I did, I tell this lengthy and somewhat weird story about the profound effect that Salutations from the Ghetto Nation had on me as a teenager.
All right.
I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but that is really one of my all-time favorite albums.
Thank you.
Fucking love that album.
Thank you. I know too. I thought it was a good record.
Yeah, absolutely. Blew my mind. Still does. Is there anything you can share about the experience of sort of writing and recording that particular album?
Well, we recorded at Electric Lady, so that was Hendrix's apartment. It was an amazing experience to record in there. It wasn't cheap either. And I think we did a pretty good job. I thought it was a great record, but because I produced it, Geffen didn't want to promote it. So that's when I told Geffen to fuck off.
I remember seeing the premiere of the Love Destruction video on MTV, and I was like, all right, this is awesome. This is going to be huge. And I don't honestly know that I ever saw it again. It just disappeared, which was crazy.
They didn't want to promote it. They're like, Kory wants to produce it. Well, he produced it. Now we're not promoting it. Because they didn't like the production. So it's like, fuck off. It didn't sound like Nirvana. Yeah, I don't want to sound like fucking Nirvana. You know what I mean? I just,
yeah,
it wasn't what I was doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there you are.
Which I guess leads us more or less to Chill Pill, which is a great album, but it definitely seems to have emerged amidst trying times.
Yes.
The relationship between you and the label was irrevocably strained at the time. So I remember reading something about this being kind of a fuck off to Geffen album, but it's still a killer album. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on all that?
Okay. So I was working on Chill Pill on and off over a couple of years. And what I wanted to do is use it as a sort of a late night album, put it out as a subsidiary label, and I still had over $250,000 on my contract. I said, look, why don't you give me $75,000 and we'll walk away from this. You can save your money and everybody's happy. And they go, no. I said, well, why not? I go, you want to pay me $250,000? You want to give me $75,000? And I walk. They're like, we'll give you $250,000. I'm like, okay. I go, get Chill Pill ready, guys. And I recorded that record for $20,000. Rest of that money get in my pocket.
Well, it sounds fantastic. I mean, the album sounds great.
Yeah, it does. So then after that, I leave Geffen and I leave Q Prime and I sign with Music for Nations in Europe, and I come up with my fifth album, Space Age Playboys, which is a whole nother world. So
yeah, so when I first heard Space Age Playboys, which is right around the time it came out, it shocked and confused me. I mean, I was in high school, I was a metalhead, and it was different. Retrospectively, I have grown to absolutely love that album. It's a killer album.
Yeah.
But I mean, it seems to me that, it's 1994. It's a very hard time to be a quote-unquote heavy metal band, and you kind of seemed like you were taking a step away from the genre. So was that the thought process?
Well, yeah, because I never liked heavy metal anyway. I was like, you know what I mean? I was just doing it because this was the sound, and I thought, okay, I can work inside that genre and do something creative with it. So when finally the chains of Q Prime's metalness and the whole stupidity of hair and all that stuff. Finally, it was just like, okay, now I'm going to make this record. And this is a record I want to make. I want to do a hyper blues, trippy, fucking cool record. And that's much more European because I'm much more of a European style person anyway. So it went really well for me in Europe.
Yeah, that album was really big in Europe, right?
Yeah, and it's still paying dividends for me today.
Yeah, you were just touring like the anniversary of that, right?
Yeah, and that's a dumb thing to do. You know, that's a dumbass thing to do. You definitely do not want to do that every night. I mean, it was brutal. We did a few tours of it, and the first time it was really hard. But by the third tour, I think I got my wind back. I lost 5 pounds on the last tour doing it.
Oh, jeez. So after Space Age Playboys, after that album, was kind of, at least for a time, the end of Warrior Soul. Like, you know, you'd changed the lineup almost completely, I think, other than Pete McClanahan. And then after that one album, it was kind of the end. What happened there?
McClanahan decided to walk out. I was literally in New York at an Oasis concert with Lars, and McClanahan walks up to me in the lobby and goes, "I want to quit the band." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah." I go, "What are you going to do?" He goes, "Oh, I'm going to become I just want to work on my photography." I'm like, "Fuck, okay." I go, "You know what? I'm fucking sick of this right now. I'm gonna try some solo stuff." And that's what happened. I just stopped doing Warrior Soul and just started doing solo shit. Then Billy Duffy from the Cult was talking to Lars, and they wanted to put me together with him and Duffy and, I don't know, Matt Sorm and some other guys. It was those guys. And they wanted to come up with a super band. And I was like, okay. And we had Bob Rock. We had a meeting with me, Billy, Bob, and Lars, and we said, let's go. And Bob was like, yeah, well, he's all hooting and hotting about going to his personal studio in Hawaii. And I'm like, I go, this sounds pretty good. We were staying at Lars's house, and he was like, yeah, this is going to be real. And then Billy Duffy crapped out. We were recording at Kurt's house, actually. And I brought my guitar player, Peter J., along, I was co-writing with my solo stuff. And I insisted, I said, listen, Billy, I've got some cool fucking shit here. And Billy's stuff just sounded like redone crap rock, you know, which I was really not interested in doing. So I said, maybe we could combine all this together. I was playing drums and singing, and we were arranging, and I like to write like that. But man, he finally he fashioned out, and he's like, yeah, I don't want to do it, you know. And he told Matt Storm that my music sucked. I'm like, I went up to Matt's and I played it to him when I was moved to LA, and he's going, this stuff's rocking. What is Billy talking about? Like, you know what I mean? So whatever, you know. But yeah, so that didn't pan out. So then I was like, well, fuck it. I'm in Hollywood. I go, why don't I just do a band, Space Age Playboys? And that's what I started doing.
Part 3, Rock and Roll Disease. Kory Clarke and Warrior Soul in the 21st Century.
Well, so then after that, you ended up bringing together the sort of proverbial classic Warrior Soul lineup for classics, very appropriately titled re-recordings of classic tunes. Did you mean for that to be a one-off, or were you thinking you were going to get the band back together more permanently?
I was going to get back together, period. But after one of the rehearsals, Mark Evans came to me and he said, listen, Johnny Rico says he doesn't want you to tell him how to play anymore. And I said, well, tell Johnny Rico to fuck off. I go, how many albums has he put out since he's been kicked out of the band? 0. How many have I done? 6 or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not telling him how to play. I'm just saying, this is what I want on Warrior Soul's record. Warrior Soul's my band. And they said, nope, he doesn't want to do that. So I said, okay, then that's the end of that. That's when I took a sabbatical for a couple of years.
It wasn't until 2007 that Warrior Soul was officially back, right? That the album formerly known as Chinese Democracy?
Yes. I got in so much trouble for that.
So I was at a concert in right around that time in New York City, and I'm pretty sure you were still selling copies under the name Chinese Democracy, and I kick myself so often that I didn't grab one of those when I could.
Oh, yeah. We only made 300 of them. We just did it as a joke. We did it as a joke. And boy, I didn't know how famous I was to see till those guys getting all upset about it. I was like, wow, are you kidding me? Everyone's saying what a loser I am. I go, it's a joke.
What is a great fucking album. I love that album.
Oh, that record's stupid. It's really good. Jan Jarvis, who was a co-producer, and he really did a lot of production on that. Him and Rilla Lundell, they did a lot of the production on that. That was a wild album to make. That was great. That was exciting.
I'm curious. So, I mean, at this point, there's a pretty good 21st Century Warrior Soul catalog. I know it's tough to choose. Do you have any personal favorites amongst the sort of the newer albums?
Well, I love Back on the Lash.
Hell yeah.
And I think that's a great record. And I also think Rock and Roll Disease.
Sure.
There's some great stuff on it. I mean, just the song Rock and Roll Disease is fucking amazing. But Up the Dose is a great song.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then there's other stuff that are more artistic and different on those records. Some very metal-y kind of things. And then Out on Bail, another very timely, cool record.
Hell yeah. So timely indeed, but it was 2022. So actually that brings my next question. Do you have a follow-up plan? Are you thinking about that? Like what's on the horizon?
Well, my life's changed drastically in the last couple of years. I was living in Greece for like the last 6 years up to last year. And then I ended up not living in Greece.
Fair enough.
And that's been such a big change coming back. You know, I don't really want to live here, but yeah, I'm here. Anyway.
It's a strange place to be, let me tell you.
It is odd. But, you know, it's okay. With you the right people, it's all right. But, yeah, I'm not trying to diss it. It's just there's a contingent of people here that are just not my kind of people. Anyway, I've got new studio equipment, and I've got a lot of songs. So I'm thinking it's going to come out this year. I think everyone's bugging me.
Allow me to be another person who's bugging you about that.
Everyone's bugging me now. So it's just like, okay, I'll do it. But it's going to take a couple months for sure. But no, I've got songs, I got stuff. I'm not going to tease you with any of it, but yeah.
I can't wait. I absolutely can't wait.
No, it's cool. It's cool, man. A lot of the same culprits are involved.
Nice.
I have a great team. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, it certainly seems that way. So it's kind of a related question, but a friend of mine begged me to ask you. He's another huge Warrior Soul fan. He lives on the West Coast, and he asked, any plans at any point to do a sort of more expansive U.S. tour or anything?
Yeah. In today's climate, it's a little bit odd.
Yeah, I know it can be tough.
But we're reaching out. I know that Christian Kimmett is reaching out to some people in Los Angeles right now. So we're talking about doing a quick limited run, maybe Vegas, Phoenix, San Diego, LA, and then maybe march up the coast there. You know, maybe do a Frisco and go up to Seattle.
Nice.
In the enemy's territory.
Right. Your old nemesis.
Yeah, no, they're not nemesis. But I played up there with Trouble when I was singing in Trouble. So, yeah, it's great up there, but Warrior Soul never made it up there.
Yeah. All right. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Just like last general question, is there anything else you're doing otherwise artistically, all of the other amazing stuff you do that you want to share with the HM 101 listening public?
Well, my paintings are going all right if you want to check those out.
They are incredible. I have seen many examples.
Thank you. When are you going to buy one?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I'm waiting on my raise as an academic and part-time podcast host to come through. But when it does, I will buy one.
No, I'll tell you what, that's been pretty lucrative for me, and actually it floated me for a couple of years. But my studio's been out of commission, so I've got to get that back together because I owe some paintings. Also, my sculptures, my hanging guitar sculptures and stuff, they've done really well, and I owe somebody one of those.
Awesome. Again, I've said it, but I'm going to say it again. I am tremendously honored that you took the time. I really appreciate it.
And I'm glad we got together to do this.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Cheers, man.
That really happened. Wow. Cool. Thanks again to Kory Clarke for taking the time, and thanks to all of you as well for coming by and listening in. Please do remember to subscribe to Heavy Metal 101 wherever you listen to podcasts, and also to rate, review, and share if and when you have the opportunity. You can also always reach out to us via email, voicemail, or social media. The links are available in the show notes. Lastly, come on by and check out the brand new Heavy Metal 101 Patreon page. $3 a month gets you access both to exclusive content and also to that warm, fuzzy feeling that comes from supporting this scrappy little podcast. The link is also in the show notes. I leave you, appropriately enough, with this prescient, final lyrical snippet from the Warrior Soul song, In Conclusion.
Say a prayer for us, that we don't lose our way. While freedom lies there dying, we are there to hold its hand. Take all the children wholly to the river of the dead. Make them drink its waters lonely, so they can learn what we had. Media children pacify, information classify. Governments hide behind religion. Kids like us get thrown.